Go ahead.
Okay, so her sister Hanamalka, who my impression is she was the oldest, she stayed back in the Ukraine, in Chernigov. And the story that I heard from Sisa was that she had a ticket to come to this country in 1918 when the Russian Revolution broke out. Or was it 17?
17.
17. It was November, well, whatever, 17 of November of 17. And that she actually, they were on the ship, had just left, and they had to turn around because there was, or she was about to get on the ship. It was really at the end of 1917.
So she made it on the ship?
No, she came back. And then within a couple of years, they lost touch with her.
Is that 1914, Bert?
17. When did the revolution?
Yeah, 17.
17. She made it through the First World War. This is Hanamalka, who I believe, from what I know, let me get you something more substantive there. And you want to stand up upright?
Oh, yeah.
Is this any better? He just wants to stand it up to record the mess.
I have to interrupt. Now, Mom, so
Hanamalka.
but your sister, so
Oh, yeah.
Her middle name is Malka. Her
Malka.
middle name, yeah.
Malka.
Well, my mom told me my name is Andrea after Hannah Malka.
Oh, after Hanamalka.
That's- I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's like my son. It's like my son Ethan. We named him, and I justify the name from her mom's mom, who was Anne. So Ethan.
I guess you can't.
So that's where I
justify
grabbed
anything. Right, you can yeah.
from her. That's
There
a
you
bit of
go.
a stretch.
Yeah, well,
But,
so is the Andrea, actually.
But well, we all are. I mean,
Right.
But even my name, I was named after Bert, but in the old country, he was Beryl.
Bill?
Beryl, B-E-R-L
Battle.
or B-E-R-Y-L, whatever the way you want to transliterate it. But the story is that Hanamalka, things got really pretty rough, very rough during the revolution in Russia, and she was there.
Civil War.
Yeah, it really was a civil war.
Civil War.
It was a huge, and there was a lot of
Against the whites.
the White Russians. So, right,
Now, Hanamalka.
yes.
I seem to remember that one of her sisters stayed behind,
Right.
okay, and I think she had 2 children, at least 2 children.
Oh,
Hanamalka had 2 children, and I think both of them went into the Red Army. Okay?
no.
Went into the Red Army, or at least somebody did, and the daughter in the Red Army survived, but she was permanently influenced mentally by the experience.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the possibility that they or somebody in the family was sent east to Siberia with another huge outflow. And, we attributed it to the fact that the early Soviet leaders wanted to protect the Jewish population from the Nazi onslaught. And so they went to Siberia. Now in Siberia, I know that was an industrial powerhouse during the war. That's where they got a lot of their munitions.
Yes.
Were in factories built
Right.
in Siberia.
Yes.
So I don't know whether it had anything to do with the Jews. Certainly by the end of Stalin's life, he was not the sort of guy that would want to protect
Right.
the Jews.
Yeah.
He could get rid of them in other ways,
Yeah.
Now,
There's
So anyway, Bert, for what it's worth, I don't know.
There's a photo of you standing next to a sign, and
In
it
Germany.
said, yeah, Die Stärke der Roten Armee
Shall I repeat it for you?
steht darin, ich habe vergessen,
Okay. Die Stärke
the strength.
der Roten Armee besteht darin, dass sie keinen Rassenhass hat gegen andere Völker, inklusive das deutsche Volk, und kein Hass can haben, something like that. That's the gist of it.
And that was
Keiner Rassenhass gegen das deutsche Volk kann haben or haben kann.
right. And what it means is the strength of the
Red Army.
Red Army lies in the fact that there is no racial hatred toward any people, against any people, including
the German.
German people.
Right.
In other words, trying to, and of course, the original communists thought that was one of their
Right.
slogans. That was
Yeah.
one of their slogans. But was it kind of wrong? Gegen oh yeah, keine Rassenhass gegen andere Völker, auch nicht gegen das deutsche Volk.
Not even against the German people.
Hate oder heben kann.
Has any hatred or can have any hatred.
Right. Right.
Yeah, we were close to the Russian
Mama's
sector.
gonna
Yeah, I was in the American sector, but it
Yeah.
was near the
Sie
boundary.
verlassen in America.
Maybe it was near the boundary of, especially the British and the Russian. So we would get, and they were all, they could come in. We could move
Yeah.
freely through all the zones of Berlin, the occupation zone. So I met quite a few Russians
And this was when?
in Berlin.
45.
45.
Like right after the war ended. That,
Okay, thanks.
And including, well, it's a big story here. Well, I don't know how I can shorten it.
Andy, can you scoot to
New Year's Eve,
that way more? Okay,
New Year's Eve of 1940, 45, 46, right? Okay. New Year's Eve, I went to a cabaret or a bar in Berlin,
Yeah.
on, and so I walk in, and all of a sudden I hear it's like Russian music. Kazakhstan, da 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 da.
there too, to your right.
Da da da. So I said, what's going on here? Okay, well, I walk in. As I walk in, this little Soviet soldier, rather short, soldier comes in panting. He had just been dancing, a Russian Kazakhstan, in that cabaret, And I don't know who said the first words. I looked at him. He looked at me. I don't know whether I think I said, Mr. Yid.
Are you Jewish?
Are you Jewish? Are you a
He was
Jew?
a Jewish tank captain who had come all the way from Stalingrad with his tank corps, and they essentially won the war for us.
Stalingrad was one of the
Stalingrad
critical
was the
battles
biggest battles
in
of the war.
down in Ukraine, down
Stopped
south. And there are
Nazi
books
onslaught
and books
eastward.
about the Stalingrad battle
Stopped
between
the
the
Nazi
Nazis and the
onslaught, and it
Russians.
was in toward the winter, and of course that began the movement of the Red Army westward, and that's where he came all the way from Stalingrad, is all the way down in southern Russia, all the way to Berlin, with his tank corps. And so I shook his hand. He looked. His hands were so weather beaten,
Yeah.
And I was in the signal corps. I was repairing radios, making a radio station there.
Really
So
soft
he-
hand.
communication
Oh, he was
station.
nice enough about it.
Yeah,
but he,
yeah,
he might be a little.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I ran into him, or
Yeah.
or by after that, whether he made it an appointment to get together sometime. So the next time I saw him, he was with a couple of displaced persons, refugees, 2 Jewish girls in their 20s, maybe middle to late 20s. And one was a beautiful blonde. And that is how she survived the war. I think she was from Poland, if I'm not mistaken. And
Now, when you say he was with them,
he was with them. He knew that he had somehow met them.
Okay.
Okay? And I think that was, certainly, there she was. And so we set up a conversation. By the way, I was already married, so don't get the wrong idea.
I'm
here.
not getting the wrong idea.
But a leitmotif of Dad is all the beautiful women pass by in his life. He does note. He takes note of that.
I have gathered. I have
Most
gathered.
women
Are
well, I think so. Anyway, I'm like Trump.
This is
No.
being recorded, you know.
It's in the genes. Have you heard that story about it being in the genes in men? That's the reason that there's all this trouble. Harassment, sexual harassment.
Oh, blame it on the genetic.
Well,
our DNA causes us. We have nothing to do with
men
it.
Not responsible.
survives. It's a survival of the fittest, because those men who are most active sexually are the ones that would propagate the race, and so therefore it survived. The genes survived in future generations. Okay, well, I don't want to justify anything that's going on, but I have to keep, not say anything about that. But as a biologist and a scientist, I think that's part of it. Anyway, I digress.
I must digress.
So she is talking to me. I'm talking to her.
The blonde.
And
Blonde,
beautiful blonde,
beautiful blonde,
blue-eyed blonde.
Yeah.
Not that you have to be a blue-eyed
No,
blonde.
no, but
Yeah,
she
okay.
capped that.
But anyway, it's kind of struck me, but I think that had something to do with her survival. Okay. So I asked her what her name is. It's Burstein. Her last name was Burstein. Okay.
Like Ellen Burstyn?
Yes.
Those are Bursteins.
And there
That
was
family
a
was
famous
Bursteins.
Jewish actor that I saw
Yeah.
in Rishon.
Right.
It's on a time the
Michael?
Yiddish theater.
Michael?
Michael.
Right. They're
Burstein.
related.
Okay.
They're related.
So that's a Jewish name.
Yeah.
And then she got to ask me. She wanted to send a letter to her brother who lived in the United States. I said, okay, I'll be glad to do that. Send it by, I'll put it in my APO letter, Army letter, and send it. And I think she probably could have gotten away with it, but I was glad to do it. And then I see the name on it, Arnon, A-R-N-O-N, Arnon. She says, my brother teaches at the University of California, Berkeley.
Oh my God.
What is his subject? Plant physiology. That's what I took in my senior year. Let's see, that was before I went back. That's what I took, was plant physiology in my senior year. I didn't have him in class, but I knew him very well. He was part of a very famous team of botanists, plant physiologists at Berkeley. Daniel Arnon. I know Dr. Arnon, Professor Arnon. And he was kind of light-haired too, and I knew him. In fact, it was he or his wife. We babysat for his family after I got back. After the war, both Flo and I were at Berkeley from 46 to 49. I was getting my PhD and she was getting her bachelor's degree there. And we were babysitting, of course, as soon as I got back to Berkeley, we got to know them very well. They had us over for a few times. And they brought her over to the States. And I'm not sure that I saw her after she got back.
Because
Because
that would be no good.
she died prematurely.
Oh, she did.
I don't know if it's something that, of her wartime
What
experience.
I mean, that's
So there you
that's
know.
really,
And Mrs. Arnon drove Flo and me to the railroad station in Oakland, was it? Or did Berkeley have a branch? Oakland,
I don't remember.
We took the train at Oakland and went up to Seattle to take probably the Northern Pacific.
Right.
or
Would have been- it
Milwaukee
would have been.
Road. It could have been either
It
one.
could've- that's true.
I think Milwaukee Road ended in Seattle, didn't it, Bert?
Yes.
But, okay.
Yes.
So they took us with all our belongings. They took us to the train station on our trip to Montana after I got the job here.
A small world. That's beyond coincidence. I don't know what you would
Yeah,
call
I don't know
that.
what you call it.
Wow. They just,
You know, it's to have survived the Second World War in the Army for 3.5 years. There must have been a lot of such incidents.
Yeah.
You might say, you know, if you are not too secular, divine intervention.
Well,
yeah.
All these things that happen.
Yeah. it's-
anyone who survived the Second World War, particularly as a Jew, has stories, has something to tell. That you don't. It wasn't just getting by
Right.
somehow. They all had either intervention or they had special qualities that helped them just get an edge and get through the experience.
Because when I was drafted, and I went to San Pedro at Fort MacArthur, you know, what do they call that? Reception center for all of
Induction
Southern
or
California. Induction center.
Right.
I was there for a week at this reception center. Oh, they've got some big things planned for me. Well, there were all these other guys coming in. 2 days, 3 days, 4 days at
And
the
they're
most.
shipped out
And they
to
were assigned
base
to me.
camp.
I'm sitting, you know, there for about a week. I said, oh, something very special is in store.
Uh-oh.
So finally I see my name on the bulletin board. One of about 1,000. Infantry Replacement Training Center, Camp Roberts, California.
Oh.
So I was in the infantry. And they, you know, they were upfront about it, infantry replacement, you know, because a lot of them needed replacing, you know, for one reason or another.
Right.
They were in the South Pacific.
Yeah.
That was a terrible thing going on.
Yeah.
So that's what I was slated for. And the reason it took so long is that they had a long list that they, that they needed to send. So a week before the end of basic training, and the team eventually did the group there, my group, my platoon or whatever, did go over to the South Pacific.
Oh, you were.
But a week before, a bunch of guys in an army uniform came over to pick people out, and they wanted to send back to school. So to go from infantry replacement to Pasadena, California, junior college.
You were.
You know, that's where they sent us to Pasadena to get reassigned. So we were there for a couple of days. Can you imagine the difference? Okay, I ended up in Ohio State U, and that's where I met Flo in Columbus. So
Wow. Did you and Lynn Reynolds ever talk about Lynn Reynolds? Remember, you know, across the street from my mom, because he.
I
Did you
think
talk
I
war and
probably got
stuff?
into some of
Probably because he was.
that. Yeah, because it was
he
such
was in
a.
the South. Yeah, World War II.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but
Yeah.
you know, that's one of the stories I'm
Yeah.
more likely, more prone
That's
to relate. Yeah.
okay. Divine intervention.
Whatever.
What did your dad do in the 40s? Was he already?
He was in dental school.
He was in dental school.
But they pushed him up a year. Well, he had been to enough dental school. He went to USC and then he went to San Francisco.
Yeah,
and
he was a senior
and they,
in USC, and he was a little too outspoken, I guess, about some of the education he was getting. The dean just booted him out of school.
I thought it was
just like that.
I thought it was because he was Jewish.
Oh, I don't think so.
Oh,
Because
tell me more.
the Frankels, I don't know if you remember Chuck Frankel and the other one, they were friends, and they had also been
outspoken
at
in what way? Be
USC.
specific.
They were outspoken in general, but it's
Politically?
possible they weren't that outspoken while they were going to dental school. So
So yeah,
Well,
his
that's
senior
what I
year-
assumed.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's
He
what I
never
don't- I
talked
don't
about
know.
it. In fact, when
I
somebody
never asked.
and he never
Isidore.
talked, and he never
And he
talked.
didn't talk
He
about
didn't.
it.
In fact, when Tammy or somebody interviewed him, he skipped over his whole USC. He like
I can
never,
see- yeah, I
never
can understand
happened,
why.
and then he got mixed up on
But
his years.
He was
He
pretty plucky because
Yes.
he went back
He
to
went. He talked to the.
UCal
He talked to the dean.
at San Francisco,
Yeah.
right?
And
And
he
Sarah
repeated-
followed him.
Yeah.
And I
And
was
he
working in
started-
the shipyards before I got drafted. I was working in the shipyards for about 6 months, in the Richmond shipyards, and I was living in San Francisco in an apartment. I think it was in the same building as Sarah and Isidore. Could have been close by. So I had Sarah and Isidore while I was there at the Richmond shipyards. You know, I was all by myself, and for about 6 months. And I think I left before they did. That would be so I must have left in 40. Let's see.
And look
If
at the
I was
window.
working in the shipyards before I
Time
was
it, time out.
inducted,
Look-
41.
Look in the
Look
window.
out the
Look in the
window.
window. Oh, you just missed it.
Oh yeah.
The deer was just there.
Yeah, it's
I got
right
it right.
there. That's close.
Is it still there?
He just jumped up to the driveway.
Different direction.
Up to the driveway.
Wait, I have questions.
The cars
He's
are
raising
annoying me.
questions for me.
Okay. Well, we see the deer all the time. They come.
So when you said he was outspoken about the education, you mean he was outspoken about politics or about?
In dental school?
Yeah.
No, I just assumed. I didn't know, Stuart. But I thought it was, fairly typical of Isidore. He was very
I know.
independent-minded
Well, he
and
was.
and could be critical. And
Yeah, he could kind of like didn't
so
have too
Chuck,
many
and what was
filters.
the other one's name? Chuck Frankel and his brother, or maybe one of them was in Isidore's class at USC, and the other one was maybe a year or so behind. And it's actually,
But did they stay?
I-
in the city? Or did
they stayed in LA.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. So it wasn't just that. Yeah.
Frankel.
Frankel. That name rings a bell. Oh, God, you're bringing up all these questions, but I'm forgetting them.
What happened to Flo?
She's still walking.
I know, but that's one thing that bothers me
Oh.
when she goes by herself,
Oh,
and
yeah, that's
especially as it gets dark in space.
right.
I can't convince her,
Yeah. I mean, anybody can.
Yeah,
follow her,
I mean-
but when was this? My mom, I don't know if it's true or not, said that when you were doing, she used to write when you were in the army in Berlin.
In Berlin,
She would write you a letter every day.
every day.
That's what she said many times. She
I
wrote
don't
to
recall getting
Okay.
it quite that frequently.
that's what she said. I wrote to my brother every day, so he wouldn't be lonesome.
I wonder what happened I brought a few things back from Berlin.
So how long were you
In Berlin?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was from, I think it was maybe early October, September. It was, shortly after the war in Japan was over. I didn't go immediately after the war because I'm pretty sure I went to a camp, a kind of camp, a civilian camp. They were in the middle of the Delaware River outside of Philadelphia to learn how to put up a radio station, a fixed radio station, so they could transmit to airplanes, I guess. But at that time, it was long before the Berlin airlift. And we wondered, what are they doing with a radio station?
Yeah.
Who needs it,
Right.
because they weren't permitting any flights at that time. The Soviets were occupying all of Eastern Germany at the time. And they just had that island in Berlin that was occupied by the four major powers. So I don't know. That's
Yeah,
what we were
yeah,
doing.
okay.
But that's what we learned in Berlin, in Philadelphia, Hog Island, and it happened that Flo's aunt and uncle, her uncle on the mother's side, had lived. Well, they were. I think they were all three born in Philadelphia. That is Flo's mother and her two brothers, and the one brother was living there. He married a Columbus girl, and they were living in Philadelphia. So almost every night I would come back to their house, to, stay over. And the rest of the guys were probably staying at the Hog Island. They must have had a place to stay there. They must have had some dorms, So
The deer's back.
yeah, I see.
And so is, I thought I heard
some.
Yeah.
I heard something.
Yeah, it just ran down.
Oh, I thought I heard the.
Oh, the
door.
deer is back.
The
The
deer,
deer's
I
back,
thought-
and now
Flo.
Flo is back.
Yeah,
Mom's
Flo is.
here. Mom's
That's
coming.
good. That's good.
She's back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or yeah.
From that
You're on
point of
tape.
view,
You're on tape.
I take after my mother. I don't know where you
Over
were.
yeah. That's a Chessin thing.
It's a family
The
hobby.
Chessin.
And slightly, what's it? Hypochondria. Slight hypochondria. Not anymore.
These are. That's true.
Real well.
Well,
I don't think-
take it day by day.
How
Okay.
you can't.
Que sera, sera.
Yeah, well, you got it. I
Customer
clearly
design,
gotta
design.
be at that.
So, yeah, you can't go on.
Yeah. Oh wait, I have more questions.
So, you're back, Butch. Do you realize how long you've been gone?
Half an hour.
That's a long walk.
That's a very long walk. You see, I resent it because I can't do that anymore.
The truth comes out.
And I used to practically run away from it. Oh, look at you see, it's wonderful to
There was a
see.
deer.
See the weather coming
There was a
in.
deer
saw
up
that.
in
To see the weather coming in like this
Yeah.
over the Those
Oh,
are
yeah.
what we call the Rattlesnake Mountains.
I'm.
And not because there's a lot of rattlesnakes there, very, very few.
Did you go there?
But
I feel like I went there.
I'm sure we've been there.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know whether
When I was-
Stuart has been up the
When I
Rattlesnake.
was like 10 years old, maybe. Cause we came when he was bar mitzvah.
Oh, when Bert was bar
I came
mitzvah
with Charlotte
in
and
63.
Mhm.
63.
We went all over the place.
And you were,
I was with Charlotte. I was 10 years old.
you're 10 years old.
Almost, yeah. And I was with Charlotte.
Charlotte came, not
with
Sarah.
Steve. No.
No. And
Charlotte.
we went horseback riding.
Yes.
Did you go?
Yeah.
We went up the Rattlesnake. They had
Okay.
They had a
Okay.
horse farm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Steve and Louise, well, they
Right,
were little.
right,
Yeah.
right. Oh, I didn't realize that you were alone at this.
Yes, I was.
No, if you
Wait,
remember that.
He was complaining of
I
delay.
heard that. Yeah.
He was
So
complaining
something
of
was
headaches.
wrong.
During that visit.
Okay, so something.
I don't know what your memory. Well, you weren't there at the. You were
No,
at
I
your
was.
house, but
So
you were
don't
down at.
feel a
You
little
weren't
bit
on
of
Navy
guilt
Street.
because Clearly,
Right.
My
something
memory,
wasn't right.
and I was only 5 years old.
Yeah.
Is that Zalman was out? Is not that he was napping. He was out. He came back after we had already left.
Yeah, I know. But
But Mom
But-
remembers that we were all taking naps and he kept sleeping.
Yeah.
well, he was doing that.
But
he
I
was
was-
sleeping.
We
But I'm
decided
not
not
sure.
to disturb
I'm not sure
him,
about
which
the
was such a
specific.
big
My
mistake.
memory
circumstances.
is that he was at my
But
parents'
you weren't
house.
there.
No, I was
You
there.
weren't at CISA's.
No,
But
I was
you
at the
guys were.
house,
You were at the
and
house.
and then I saw him fall down in the kitchen, and I
In the
told,
living room.
living room,
What happened was
and I
he-
told my mom, Papa fell down, and then we all got scooted out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
No,
but
we're
as
talking
far
about
as-
what led up to it.
Right.
Yeah,
Because he was.
and my mother said he had been complaining of headaches.
Yeah.
but,
I don't
but people
remember the
get
headaches.
headaches.
Mom. Yeah. Mom.
Yeah, I don't
said
remember
same
the
thing.
headaches.
Yeah.
I do remember the sleeping.
I do remember.
Almost.
So maybe that was it. I thought for some reason he was out
Yeah.
and missed the ride up to
And
Palisades.
and he
No, he
he
didn't
missed a
call.
ride somehow.
Right.
And what he had done, it was in the middle of the summer. It was a warm day.
It was June
It was
20th.
He took
with
the bus and then he hiked up
Akron.
Mhm.
Akron to the house, came in the door into the living room, and to the end of the and he just fell down, and that was
How old was he?
67.
Yes.
Yeah.
and he had he came in 37, right?
California.
Yeah, in California. And that was 55?
Yes.
Was that 55?
Yes, it was 55.
So 37 to 55,
45.
that's
18 years.
18.
18 years. So they had 18 wonderful years at the beach.
Yeah.
You know,
And 18 years of life.
they lived, you know,
California life.
the California
Yeah,
lifestyle.
yeah.
He did everything
18
he
years.
wanted to do, and
Yeah.
on top of that, they went swimming all the time.
That's how he got. He had a disease.
Oh, it was
My mom
terrible.
told
He
me
had,
that whole.
had ulcers all over, inside and out.
And what's that disease? What's that called?
What?
Pemphigus.
Oh, there's a name.
Autoimmune.
Pemphigus.
Oh.
It's an autoimmune
Mine, I
disease.
didn't know that.
Of the membrane.
And they didn't
diagnosed
have
it.
any real cure
Yeah,
for
at that time.
it. Shortly after, not too long after, they discovered the steroids would
So it was an
help.
autoimmune.
And so now it's curable. It wasn't curable in the sense that it,
But
you know,
did he
you
get-
could
Manage it.
slowly and slowly he recovered.
Well, my mom said it was because of the ocean.
Oh, of course, that
Salt
whole
water.
the water, the salt, the sun, the lifestyle.
Yeah.
All his friends there from the old country.
Yeah.
He had a
The Israel
chorus,
11th
you know,
century,
Yes.
eventually
Yeah.
the Jewish Philharmonic
Your mom sang it,
chorus.
Charlotte sang it.
of the Bay Cities, Jewish
Uh-huh.
chorus, you know, and he was an important cog in that as well.
I didn't know they ever diagnosed what that was. My mom
Yeah.
just said it was.
She
It was
told me, but I'd
terrible
forgotten
when it
it.
first came up.
Say it again. Bert.
Vulgaris implies that it was
Pemphigus?
common.
Yeah.
Vulgaris, meaning it's
Oh,
just
vulgar.
gross. Vulgaris.
Vulgar.
Is vulgar.
Well,
I mean, it's,
Related.
it was gross too.
Yeah. But
Because when he came out with the Hyman Margolin from the old country, who had a chicken farm up in San Fernando. I don't know if you remember the Margolins. He came. They live in California. They'd been to Detroit first, and then they went to California and got a chicken farm. And he used to come back almost every year to get a new car in Detroit.
Oh.
And this one year, Zalman was sick. He said, "Well, why don't we just go on to New York?" So they drove there with their new car to New York. And we didn't know, of course, unannounced, completely unannounced. One day he comes in with Dina and what was it, 2 kids. It was what was her name? What was Margolin girl's name?
oh God, I don't know.
Oh God,
What a memory.
Dina.
Helen?
No.
Phyllis.
and I don't know what the boy's name was either.
It's okay. You got one out of
See,
the
Sarah would have known, and I don't know whether Charlotte would have known. Because we used to go visit them, the kids, when we came to California. But the point is, okay, they barged in on us in a 2-room apartment. Well, 3 rooms, because we had a kitchen, of course, a bathroom, a living room where I slept, and 2 bedrooms, one larger for the folks, and one smaller for Bubba and Sarah. They slept in separate beds in the
My
same
mom,
room.
yes.
In the
She
same room.
slept with her grandmother.
And
I'm
and I don't know
Buccaneer.
where we put them. Or where they put us. I don't remember. They stayed for a few days.
That the Margolins were lunch like.
Well, I think so. Yes.
And the Chernoys?
Also, well, Chorno was his brother. They were brothers. They got different. I don't know what their original
that's
name
interesting.
was because
that's
they were
interesting.
escaping the Tsar's police all the time. All 3 of them.
I didn't realize they were brothers. I knew
Yeah,
of Margolins,
they-
I knew of Chernoys, I didn't know
Right,
they were brothers. Okay.
Nathan Chernoy and what was the son's name? Myron and Gene Chernoy. They had a lamp store on not Main Street, not Rose, It was a business street there in
Lincoln?
no. Going from the beach up to Main Street, there was a business
In Venice?
District.
Yeah.
Pier.
Santa Monica.
Pier Avenue.
Oh.
Okay,
Pier Avenue, because it took you down to the Ocean
Yeah.
Park Pier.
right.
But along Pier Avenue, before you got to Main, they had had a lamp store, the Cherners, for a long, long time. So, yeah, Florida.
This is more interesting than Rachel Maddow. I'd much rather.
Do you
listen-
remember names?
What? Joyce? Jean?
Well, Hyman and Dina,
Yeah.
and then what were the kids' names?
Oh, Mickey.
What was the girl? No.
I met
Oh,
them
well,
once.
the girl
We went
met-
out once.
The girl married Bill Kamminker,
It's going to drive him nuts.
and we used to go visit them, the Kamminkers.
Bert will look it up. Bert will look it up.
Okay.
Okay. Wait.
Stuart's on the job already.
Well, I don't know. He's not. He's not a genealogy.
I met
I'm
them
just looking at
actually
what you have
once.
here.
Oh, okay. Well, here's.
I mean,
let's do this.
Dina and
Let's.
think so.
The daughter was Rose. Rose married Bill.
Wait.
Rose Kamminker.
Is this just coming to you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it just came. Yeah.
Okay. Good. You feel better?
Well, I do, but
Yeah,
I
no,
don't
no,
let
I
it bother me too much because there's too much of it, you know.
Right.
That happens.
Well,
Yeah, Rose and, well, then I may remember the two different types of kids. One was a very ascetic type, and Rose was very earthy. You had those two strains.
uh-huh.
Well, in any culture, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, especially in a Jewish culture.
What are you looking at?
Asceticism
Oh.
No, you
was
see,
encouraged among men.
Zalman's mother was Mashalaya,
Uh-huh.
and then Chanamalka. Those are the two I kind of confused.
That's all right. I don't have to see it.
Okay. Now let me see if I can find.
Oh, Bert, I didn't mean you had to find it now.
No, it's.
You're busy
He loves to
cooking.
do it.
Where's a new
You
one?
guys have such great. You have hair. See, I'm used to. The men have hair.
So who should we start?
Yeah. Hair.
Who do you think you
Mine
know?
is
Okay.
That's a lot of hair.
Oh, I had a lot, yeah.
Jaime,
Yes.
Chaim Margolin.
Chaim Margolin
Okay.
and Dina.
But you did.
His
It was
wife.
like-
Okay, just a minute. Let me.
Yeah.
And I've
Marty.
I've
and he's white. It's his scalp.
Right.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean that.
No, it's okay.
That's right. It's a little
Recording,
close.
never mind.
I got a more panoramic
Are you still
Hi.
shot here.
recording?
Yes.
Chaim
Watch what you say,
Margolin,
everybody.
male, deceased. So he would have also probably been from Shemyaj.
I'm not sure where.
What?
You know, Alice Levitas was also
It is.
Landsfrey.
Lansfroy.
Landsfrey.
Lansfroy
Right.
of Dad's, I think.
She was
Not
a good
mother.
friend of Cisa, Alice Levita.
Well,
yes?
their son was Walter, and it was very good friend.
Very good friends with Dad.
Okay. I mean,
Walter
that name is.
Levitas, you remember my
Oh,
buddy Walter?
Yes, I should. Yes.
And Connie, I wonder what's happened to her. I haven't called her because Charlotte used to let me know
Yeah.
about my friends.
You don't know the. Did Margolin's parents come? Did
Margolin's parents.
He
You
came
mean-
from the old country, didn't he?
Yeah, of course.
He came from the old
I
country.
mean, but your grandmother came. Solomon's mother came.
Yeah, but
Oh,
no.
you don't know of any
No.
any other.
No.
Okay.
No, for going back generations.
Right, going back a generation.
As far
okay.
as I know.
Okay.
No, they didn't have anybody living.
And the spouse was
Dina.
Dina.
And there was that story, Bert. There was a story in the LA Times about the Margolins 30 years ago, maybe 25 years ago. There was a story about that whole family in the LA Times. I think Chaim, I don't know what
I think
Nathan
I remember
Dina
Charlotte.
was mentioned. Yeah.
Well, that name is so familiar. I guess there's more than.
Well, it's not
one
unusual,
Margot.
yeah.
Well, I have access to the LA Times online. I can always do a search.
We could do that.
Yeah.
Let's
Oh
see.
boy.
Yeah, if they have archives.
Boy,
I'm
that
sure
must
they
be
do.
a huge,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
a huge archive.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, let me see. So, okay, this will help. Narrow it. We went to edit it and okay. So, residence.
In
Cal-
California. In let's
they
see.
were also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Uncle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
But Uncle
you know,
Jake was-
Shirley met Leonard. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Fanny came. See, they never really lived for long in California from New York. Uncle Jay came once
but he
by
did-
himself. He was a carpenter, and so he got jobs pretty easily when he came to.
I feel like
to-
I met
to
him.
LA.
I feel like I met him
But
one
he
time.
he
Maybe.
was just he was an urban type. He loved to walk around town and visit with all the people. He stopped at every store, every person, and he very social. Very interested in music. He'd go to hear every famous musician, Caruso, Ursula Rosenblatt. No matter who it was, Jake was always
Okay,
there.
Chaim Margolin was born the 15th of May, 1988. Exactly the same age as your
Is
dad.
that an Osprey?
1888.
1888.
We have to correct. Boy, what a.
Where was he born?
Chaim was born. I'll get to it in a minute. He arrived in 1907, the same year your dad did.
There you go.
Wow.
Maybe on the same boat.
Made
I
on
don't
the same boat.
Yeah.
It would take some searching through the ship manifest to find out, but let's see.
Another day.
Let's see. He was. Oh, there he is, Chaim.
See that mountain sticking up there, that snow-covered peak, the volcanic peak, it
Yes.
just barely
That's all.
shows below the clouds off to the
Yes.
left.
Yes.
Do you see it, Stu?
I think so.
To the left. It's all by itself.
Yeah.
Okay, snow-covered. We used to call it Squaw Peak,
Squaw Peak.
and then that became not very politically correct. So
Oh.
they gave it an Indian name,
Oh.
and which translates into something else. Because squaw was not was a derogatory term.
About 15, 20 years ago, they went through a whole
Right.
thing of getting rid of the
And up the
non-PC.
reservation, as you go up the Flathead, a lot of the signs are in Salish Kootenai. You know, they've been recovering their,
They've been teaching
their
the
their
children.
roots, the people there,
Oh, okay.
and they go to schools now and so on. You know, it's very positive.
Yeah, Chaim's spouse says it's Rose.
Signed, his daughter was Rose.
His list here is his wife. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Dina, yeah, Rose. Wait a minute, Rose.
Maybe that was a wife.
Yeah, it was Dina. Now, who was Rose? Rose, you know who Rose is? Rose was the spouse of his son, and I can't remember the name of his son.
Okay, well, I should be able to find I'll find the census records are pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll find that. Let me find the census record.